Russia claims to have dealt a decisive blow to Ukraine, as well as to the West. And according to the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation, the Sapsan medium-range missile production program was destroyed today, August 14th. According to the Federal Security Service, Ukraine was not preparing it alone, but, surprise, with the help of Germany. 750 kilometers of range, deep inside the territory of the Russian Federation, and therefore an unparalleled capability to strike strategic targets within the country. Of course, this is not only a decisive blow in military terms, but also in media terms. An extremely powerful message, both for the domestic sphere, inside the Russian Federation, and of course for the international sphere. Because this attack is carried out and published by the Federal Security Service and therefore by the Russian Federation, just one day before the negotiations between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump begin. We also need to add another possibly more important detail to the context. These last few days we have been talking about the absolutely constant provocations carried out by Ukraine with the intention of causing some kind of disruption or even directly cancelling, if possible, these negotiations between both presidents. This move by the Russian Federation, according to the information provided by that country, completely wipes out all Ukrainian attempts, unless Ukraine destroys the Crimean Bridge tomorrow, which I doubt will happen. Let's see, what do you all think? Do you see this kind of attack by Ukraine as possible? Especially now that Russia has destroyed, according to them, the Sapsan system, right? But of course this isn't just anything, because there's also the Federal Security Service. And I left you right away, we'll look at the exact details, but I left you with a thought that I think is absolutely masterful on my Telegram channel. And some images that are the full images published by the Federal Security Service, which I can't share here because censorship has been getting too strict lately. Liusivaya or at Liusivaya altogether, just like the rest of my social media. As always, the link to the video is in a pinned comment as well as in the description of this video. But most importantly, some images and some objectives, of course, we'll be able to show them right here. And this is all according to Russian information, but does it really leave Ukraine at the mercy of the wolves? And as for the details, here you have a summary of what SAPSAN is, a tactical operating system. That is an operational tactical missile system which entered mass production in June 2025. Designed as a medium-range missile with a warhead of about 480 kilos, which is, mind you, much more powerful than the attack. Estimated American range of 500 to 750 kilometers, no more and no less, which puts Moscow directly in the crosshairs, among other very important cities in the Russian Federation. Russia claims that this was done with Western support, particularly from Germany, and with Western money. And that production had already started, and they plan to produce up to 200 missiles a month, which is a very significant amount. However, now looking at the images, it doesn't seem like those facilities will be operational again in the short term. And regarding the exact points that were attacked, here are the images published by the Federal Security Service. The damage recorded at the Pavlovgrad chemical plant, which produced and stored solid fuel for Sapsan, as well as shells, small aircraft bombs, and thermobaric charges. In addition, the mechanical plant in Pavlovgrad was also attacked, where missiles, propulsion systems, control systems, as well as Sapsan combat units were assembled. The Soskin Zvezda plant, where gunpowder and warheads were manufactured, was attacked. It was manufactured, you understand, at the Institute of Chemical Products Research, finally in Sostka, where fuel for flamethrower systems was produced, and new types of gunpowder were being developed, taking into account that the targets in question, because there are several of them. The four main ones are located in the regions of Sumy, Dnipropetrovsk, and Zhytomyr, Careful, we've been discussing the situation on the front recently and in the regions of Sumy and Dnipropetrovsk. There have already been advances by the Russian Federation, but above all, we should highlight the one in Dnipropetrovsk. That is to say, it might be that the reconstruction of those facilities will not be possible directly by Ukraine. In other words, both military and media opportunities, which is almost the second most important thing for Ukraine, are lost for the Kyiv regime. However, it's a major blow for Germany. It's not like their economy is in a position to make pointless investments, much less so. And regarding the information provided by the Federal Security Service about this operation, there are several key points to highlight here. The attacks have been happening throughout this past month of July because there have been several attacks that have led to these latest consequences. However, announcing the entire operation now, right before the meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, of course it has been planned on purpose and it wasn't done this way by chance. The Federal Security Service, and there on my Telegram channel, do you see it? Not only has he published the images of the targets that were destroyed or damaged in a way that, as you can see, is quite significant, but he has also published conversations that he obtained from Ukrainian sources. That is to say, he has been doing a very good job in intelligence, gathering a lot of information, confirmations of drone arrivals, and all of this. In addition, it is widely embellished there. You can see it in the video with images directly from the different targets that were later attacked by the Russian Federation. I mean, it's an absolutely brilliant operation. That's the first thing. It's an operation that, moreover, if Western media were even minimally objective, would completely eliminate any possible news even today about that operation that was called Operation Red by Ukraine, which deployed its drones inside the Russian Federation and attacked several Russian airfields. However, the price for Russia, the price for Ukraine, in other words, today's Russian operation compared to the Ukrainian operation just a few months ago, cannot be compared. That is, the damage that Russia has caused to Ukraine is infinitely greater. We add to that the fact that it has caused damage not only to Ukraine, but also to the West. There's no need to mention Ukraine's damage. To even describe it, it's absolutely incalculable, I would say, the damage to the West. Extremely important. Also, this attack by the Russian Federation is very, very, very painful, even more painful if that's possible. Taking into account the international context in general terms, especially the very particular context of tomorrow, however, it's still open and I'd like to hear your opinion. The question of whether this Russian attack will completely eliminate Ukraine's ability to produce medium-range missiles, or if it will only delay the achievement of that goal. I'll leave the question here for you. I'd love to read your answers. And I also want to remind you that if you enjoy this kind of geopolitical analysis, any help and support, whether it's in the form of likes, comments, or any other kind, it's absolutely welcome, because right now I'm not going through especially easy times, much less on this channel, and you can see that for yourselves. However, I still try to give my best. If you think it's a good idea, you could also subscribe. That being said, I'll say goodbye until tomorrow's report.